Be more chef. What does that mean? Well, what I continually ask as a teacher and a parent and a leader is, are we preparing our students to be chefs? Or are we preparing our students to be cooks? It's a mantra that has been in my brain time and time again, especially the past few weeks and months as my brother passed away from cancer. He was full chef. He lived every day taking the ingredients of life that was given to him and turning it into something special. His life was demonstrated of what a chef can be and could be. This mantra is something bigger though when we talk about education. It's what does it look like when students are in our classroom? How are we preparing them? Are they just following rules and guidelines, or are they taking on the challenges that are there in authentic ways, just like a chef? Tim Urban, the author and founder of the blog Wait But Why, talks about the difference between a chef and a cook. Here's what he says. The cook and the chef may seem like terms that are completely agreeable with each other, terms that could be one and the same. However, the chef starts from first principles. They start with the basic ingredients and turn it into something. The cook, on the other hand, follows a recipe. They take proven recipes of things that have been created time and time again and just follow the steps to create something. The chef, on the other hand, is the person that saw wheat, and they saw dough, and they saw tomatoes, and they saw cheese, and one day they had the idea, what if we put it all together into a wonderful thing that we now call pizza? The chef is the person that takes the raw ingredients of life in their own learning journey or in anything they're doing, and they say, what can we make of this? How can we do something new and useful and something innovative instead of doing the tried and true old cook recipes? The cook always works off of some version of what's already out there. The cook looks at a recipe of some kind, a meal she tried and liked, and tries to replicate it. The chef, on the other hand, works from the unknown. They take ideas and recipes and break them down to the small ingredients and make it something unique and special and new. The chef is the one that the cooks follow. And so in essence, the chef is the one that's creating and making and designing, while the cook is the one that's following the rules, following the steps, and going through the practical ways to make it right. So my question is, are we encouraging our kids to be chefs? Are we encouraging them to be cooks? Are we encouraging them when we're working with them one-on-one or in small groups or in large groups to just follow the rules that we've given them, to follow the steps, to follow a rubric? Or are we giving them the autonomy, giving them the ownership, empowering our kids to solve authentic and real problems, using what life, what school, what their experiences have given them, and creating something new and unique with what they have in front of them? Chefs, on the other hand, question the world around them. They question everything. Chefs question answers as much as they answer questions. Yet in school and in life, we almost always reward cook-like behaviors. We give the kid a gold star who followed all the steps on a project. We give the kid a ticket who kept quiet in the hallway. We almost never reward chef-like behaviors because everything we're doing K through 12 is a call and response, a ask and follow, a compliance-based way to get kids to do what we think they should do. In fact, it's been documented that this doesn't happen to just a few kids. Curiosity isn't killed with just a couple kids. It's actually documented to impact most of the population. As they grow up, they become less and less curious. Take, for instance, a study done in 1960 by George Land. He conducted a study of 1,600 5-year-olds, and 98% of them scored in the high range of creativity and having this creative learning process. Dr. Land retested the subjects, the kids, every 5 years. And when they were 10 years old, just 5 years later, only 30% of those same kids scored on that high creative range. This followed in the next 5 years as the numbers went even further down. When the kids were 15, only 12% scored in the creative range. And by the time they got to 25, only 2% of the kids that were 98% when they were 5, only 2% when they were 25 years old scored in the high creative range. What's happening? How are we taking kids that come into this world curious and creative and makers and designers and dreamers and turn them into adults that don't have that creative gene inside them anymore, that are relinquishing their ability to make and do and design and create? As Tim Urban points out, people often think of creativity as a born talent, as it's something that you're just inhibited of, a gene that comes alive in you as soon as you come out of the womb. But creative work and creative process is in every single person. It's like a canvas where you can put any type of creative work on it. The problem with most schools and most education and most learning is that instead of giving the kids a blank canvas of which to create anything they dream of, we give them a coloring book and tell them to color inside the lines. Think about your own life. When did learning become synonymous with school? Why do so many of our kids get more and more stressed out and anxious as they go through school? Why do so many of them drop in engagement as they get into the upper grade levels of school? But then again, those same kids will spend 14 hours on a weekend watching Minecraft videos, building worlds and creating on their blank canvas, learning all different types of things from people around the world using text, video, audio, all different types of ways to learn, and come back to school on Monday, bored, unable to learn in ways that we suggest that they should learn. We ask kids to be cooks in school, but for the rest of their life, they're going to be valued when they're a chef. It's been quite apparent to me over the past 14 years in public education as a teacher, as a coach, as a professor, as a school leader, an administrator, and now as a parent, that most of us are saying the right things. We want kids to be creative. We want them to explore. We want them to do project-based learning. We want them to have that gene of making and designing and creating come out every day in school. And yet, even though we say the right things and we want this to happen, the reality of school is that it's very much turning out cook after cook after cook. So how do we get from here to there? How do we get from a place of wanting school and learning to look a certain way and get from the place of where it looks right now in many classrooms around the world? Well, I think we have to start by being a very kind of self-assessment and metacognitive place where we look at our own practices. I know for me personally, it's much easier to teach a classroom full of cooks. They follow the rules, they do what you ask, and they actually go through the process just as you hope they would go through the process. It's much easier to raise cooks as well. As a dad, asking my kids to do something and having them do it, and having me give them the step-by-steps of what they need to do in each iteration throughout the day is much easier than allowing them to have the freedom and opportunity to create on their own on that blank canvas, just like a chef would do. But ultimately, as parents, as leaders, as teachers, we have to ask ourselves, what's the point? What's the purpose of school? Is this 15,000 hours that we have from kindergarten through senior year, 12th grade, is it all about following the rules? Is it all about compliance? Or is it about something more? Is it about creating chefs and giving kids opportunities to inhibit chef-like behavior? Wherever you look, in any industry, it could be business, it could be economics, it could be farming, it could be science. Wherever you look, chefs are the ones that are turning the world upside down. They're the ones that are shaping the industries of the world today for the world tomorrow. They're the ones that are creating the world that the rest of us all live in. The world now values these chef-like behaviors more than ever before. So how do we get our kids to have opportunities while they're in school, while they're with us, to have chef-like opportunities to work and grow and live and learn? We need to challenge ourselves. We need to challenge ourselves to look at how we assess students and how we assess children. Are we just giving them multiple choice tests and another 5-paragraph essay, when in the real world what they're doing is solving authentic problems, working with a team, working on real issues that take multiple different media to solve and multiple different places to research and learn from? Are we giving kids opportunities while they're in schools and while they're in our house to do chef-like things like creating, making, designing? And how much % of the time while they're in school is spent consuming versus creating? While we're in the work world, much more of our time is spent creating than consuming. Yes, I think many of us agree that we want kids to be more chef and less cook. But in order to do that, we have to do it ourselves. We have to create chef-like lessons and learning experiences where we take those first principles and the raw ingredients of learning and allow kids to explore on their own, to not only follow their passions, but to find the purpose in what the learning will give them. Does that mean we take away the basics? No, kids need to know how to read, they need to know how to write, they need to know how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, all these things. But once they get those basics, how can we allow them to use those first principles to create chef-like opportunities and learning experiences for themselves instead of us always creating it for them? The first step to allowing our kids to be more chef and less cook is to give an ownership of the learning process back to them. In anything we do, in any subject that we do, where can we find choice to give the students in what they're doing? What decisions are we making for our kids that they can make for themselves? If we start at that place, the following will be choice, ownership, empowerment, and deeper learning experiences that allow students to bring out the chef that has always been in them since they're 5 years old, but to keep it going to fuel that curiosity as they go through school and go through life. My brother, he was a full chef. His life was cut too short, but in the end, one of the things that really makes me happy is to see that his legacy was for other kids to be more chef, to be less cook, and to take the ingredients of life that we get, every single one of us, and turn them into something magical. Be more chef.